Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Overmind, and welcome back to another StarCraft 2 replay cast. Today I have for you a PvP on Catalina. Spawning at the 5 o'clock position of our map, we have our red Protoss player, Seb, from B-Noob. B-Noob having actually a pretty cool little Carbots clan symbol icon thing to look at, so very good for you, Seb. And spawning at the 12 o'clock-ish position from CTL6, we have ZookaMan. He's throwing down his first pylon off to the side here, and is going to head out to scout. For those of you who have not played on Catalina yet, Catalina is very similar to Merry-Go-Round in that it is one of those lovely little 3-spawn maps. So the person could be here where we see ZookaMan, here where we see Seb, or over here on this lonely bit of map here. Looks like Zuka's gonna scout the empty position first. However, by scouting the empty position, he will in fact know where his opponent is. Seb actually electing not to scout just yet. Gonna go ahead and throw down the gateway first, and then head on out. Probes being chrono boosted out. And both players looking pretty even. Now, of course, with the mirror matchup, the PvP or TVT or ZVZ, it actually winds up being really, really important. What differences you see in each person's play. For example, right now we see 1 and 2 assimilators being thrown down, and we see almost exactly the same timing from Zuka. So even just a few seconds quicker on everything can really become a cumulative thing that helps you out or hurts you by the mid or late game. Naturally, right now we see production tabs almost exactly even. Both players opting for the double assimilator and 2 probes in each. We do see Seb's probe being sort of escorted out by Zuka's. Similarly, we're going to see Zuka get a look around this base, and it looks like Seb's probe sort of lost interest there a little bit, but that's alright. It doesn't really look like Zuka's up to too much cheesy nonsense at this point, so Seb's gonna be alright. No hidden pylons from either of these players just yet. Zuka is gonna go ahead and camp his little probe down out here, so that maybe he can take another peek into this base later. We do see a little bit of probe fighting over here, but they both have shields, and neither of them look like they're about to die yet. We have Warp Gate research coming on up from Zuka, whereas the gas from Seb is actually going to go ahead and be spent on the Mothership core. No Warp Gate research just yet. Seb has this nice pylon here near the front for vision. Zuka did take a little bit of a look down there for a moment just to see what's going on. Now, the nice thing about this Mothership core is that you can actually tell when it's building if you do get a look in there at the right time. So Zuka might know what's up. Robo coming down. Personal favorite myself. Leading with Robo is always good in case you get those early cloak DTs or something silly like that. Zuka getting another good look around the base. And is going to get to see this Robo facility coming on up. We do have a Mothership core from Zuka as well. Probes coming out and along. And as we can see, his Warp Gate research is a bit ahead of Seb's. It looks like he's choosing to add on another gateway, as well as a Robo himself. So lots of very sort of safe play. I feel like the Robo facility getting that nice detection and help with scouting is actually pretty safe. We do see another gateway coming down over here from Seb. So by and large, both players are pretty even. And looking like they're going to settle in for a macro game. First blood, I think. Zuka's scouting probe is taken out. Once you have a Stalker or a Mothership core, you're pretty much game to go ahead and kill that probe off. This Mothership core is actually sitting over here in a nice position to spot for oracles, in case anything like that happens. However, we do see a decent number of Stalkers moving out for Zuka. We'll see if he wants to put any pressure on. I believe that we do have enough from Seb to hold this off if Zooka does decide to try and push. Oh, it looks like there's an expansion going down from Seb. And that nice front pylon so that he can warp things in as soon as his warp gate is done. Zooka, of course, having the reinforcing pylon so that he can push on up the ramp. And this is a tense moment. This is the scary bit. Mothership Core finally joining, slowly making its way across the map and grouping up with everyone. We see additional gateways being added back at Zooka's main, as well as the ever-infamous Immortals. Zooka, try and focus down that Immortal. I don't know that Seb needed to back up necessarily. Just backing up the Immortal by itself probably would have been enough instead of just backing up the whole army, but that's going to be alright. Oh, this looks surprisingly even. Seb might have been able to micro that a little bit better. It looks like Zooka's actually going to come away... Oh, Mothership Core? If he can get this pylon down, keep Seb from being able to warp things in down here on the bottom, which is going to be nice. But this Mothership Core does have enough for a photon overcharge, and since that Nexus just finished, going to be able to push Zooka right on back. And oddly enough, this is actually a decent amount of reprieve here. This is a full minute worth of time where Seb is pretty safe because that photon overcharge this early in the game is going to be really hard to push up against. So we do have probes transferring down. In the production tab, we see that Seb is going to make an Immortal for that additional reinforcement of the defense. We have more warp-ins coming in, and Zooka in fact is going to take his own expansion here, just slightly later. However, if he can make this push work, he will certainly be worth it this early in the game. We do see units continuing to be warped in here. Seb is going to have a very nice view of what exactly is out here, since he has that nice observer. And these Immortals do have to waddle their way slowly across the map. So we have Immortals doing their damage, photon overcharge coming into play pretty quickly. I think he could have sniped that last Zealot, but the Zealot does make it away alive. Zooka pulls back a little bit, which is probably the correct choice, or at least the one that I would have gone with, so good for him. Seb actually really needs to spend his money. He only has 2 warp gates. Zooka's been working on 4. He has been sort of a little bit conservative about expanding here, since he had that push coming on in. He doesn't have his gases on up just yet. Although he does have his mineral line fairly nicely saturated for this point in the game. There we have those assimilators going down. We have additional production at the Robo. And we have those gateways coming up. So he's going to start to even out a little bit for money once he gets those down. He definitely could use another probe mining at each assimilator at his main, since he only has 2 going on there. You can see that he's really starved for gas. Hallucinated Phoenix from Zooka, who's doing a very good job of scouting and looking to see exactly what's going on. I believe if we look at the Zooka cam, we should see... Oh, he doesn't quite see these extra warp... Oh, nope, there we go. There we go, now he sees everything. He knows exactly what's going on. All is well in the world of ZookaMan. Lots of pylons going down. Seb, since he has that extra money, just gonna throw down a bunch of pylons, and, you know, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. Sort of surprised this pylon didn't get taken out earlier, but looks like Seb's gonna go ahead and deal with it now. Which puts ZookaMan very close to supply blocked, actually. Zooka's decided to go ahead and tech up. He has that nice Colossus there already, which is nice to see. And a second one on the way. Looks like he's going to go ahead and get that nice Thermal Lance researched. Both players again falling back into a macro game. Zooka focusing more on units that are gas heavy and doing a good job of saturating those gas geysers. Definitely wants to keep making probes here since he's not fully saturated at this natural just yet, but of course he is keeping his money pretty low, so we can't fault him too much for missing one or two when he's spending all that money making units. This natural pretty well saturated for Seb, and honestly he might consider going ahead and taking an expansion with all this extra cash he's got. See, he has the double forges for the double upgrades, and he has the Twilight Council for, of course, Charge and Blink, which are ever important upgrades. As far as tech trees to follow, while I think Robo is the safest to start because you can get detection quickly, having Twilight Council is pretty great in general, just because there's so many options. You can get those upgrades to make your units better if you don't want to go down a tech path. You can get DTs, or you can get High Templar and eventually tech into Archons. It's a nice little thing to have around. Zooka actually going to go ahead and be the bold one, and I saw him take this expo just a little bit earlier, so he's going to finish it up. Seb only just putting this down not that long ago, so his third is actually going to finish up after Zooka's. You'll note that his money is kind of consistently higher than Zooka's, which is going to be a problem. See, if he continues to warp in units, could probably go ahead and feed another couple warp gates, or even put a couple down preemptively since he knows he's going to have a third up soonish. Do you see a little scout off from Seb? Zooka already transferring probes up to this third, so he's going to catch up very, very quickly. Especially since he's fully saturated here and is already saturating his third, while Seb is just setting his up. Seb is going to get a nice, good look in here. Sees the Robo. I imagine if he doesn't see... Oh yeah, he saw the he saw the robotics bay, so he's gonna know that there are Colossus, or could be Colossus, on the way. He will likely get a decent look at this army. Zooka not have detection? Well, alright, he's gonna get to peer at Zooka's army because Zooka does not yet have detection. He's not yet made that first observer, or if he has lost it at some point. Or it's not with the army. In any case, you guys, we actually have these players both pretty well off at this point. Looking at the army supply, we do see Seb is somewhat in the lead. However, Zooka is way in the lead as far as worker supply. Honestly, I think if Seb attacked now, he could do some decent damage. And perhaps he's planning to do just that. But with Zooka that far ahead in workers, he's going to be able to afford more units coming in to the late mid-game / early late game. That's a mouthful. Alright, Seb's gonna group up. Zooka actually gonna go ahead and take a fourth, which seems like a pretty reasonable thing to do at this stage of the game. Seb actually should probably be taking a fourth of his own. We see force fields actually going to be really key here. This is going to be an incredibly good engagement for Zooka because he is denying high ground vision with those force fields. I think he did a lot of damage there. We see in that one engagement, the army supplies actually floated back into, or not back into Zooka's favor, but really sort of evened up a decent amount, just with a little bit of good positioning. And I don't think Seb knows about this base just yet, which is going to mean that he's going to try and engage Zooka's army directly, which at the top of that ramp with those force fields, you know, could be kind of a problem. We do have DTs coming into the fray, though, which is going to help him a little bit, since Zooka doesn't seem to have detection yet, but he is stopped at that ramp. Those DTs doing a decent amount of damage. The rest of the army waddling on in. Zooka's natural is in danger of falling. It gets focus fire down, but there's a time warp. The rest of Zooka's army is right on top of this army and has been picking away at it as his expansion was killed. I think Zooka's actually going to come out of this ahead. He can just get detection up. There it is. Oh, Wow, that was actually again a very good engagement from Zuka. We see a couple units filtering in one at a time, which is going to make them a lot easier to deal with. Zuka now having that ever important detection. He's going to go ahead and reestablish his natural, which is going to mean that he's going to have, I mean, this isn't saturated, but he'll have 4 bases up and running, more or less. He'll be able to make 4 probes at a time and saturate the 2 that are not currently saturated very quickly, which is going to put him in a really good position. Seb does have this base saturated, more or less, except for the geysers again. Seb has a whole lot of money. I really wish he would have expanded along with that attack, because then he likely wouldn't be so far behind. Since that attack went poorly, Zuka's just going to shift that army into his favor, since he has the money to spend on it. Zuka quickly saturating this one. I believe he just transferred a bunch of the probes that were at his natural on over here. That or he has some hack to make probes faster than normal humans. But in any case, he's going to be getting a lot of minerals, and he's going to be powering a whole bunch of warp gates. If we look at the structures tab, we have 2 robo bays to 1 in favor of Zuka, and 10 warp gates to 5 also in favor of Zuka. So he's clearly spending his money better. Looks like he's going to go up into the Templar archives for the High Templar tech, although he has not started the research just yet. You have what appears to be a probe scout, or possibly someone to place a pylon. Yep, pylon's going down from Seb. But at this point, Seb simply doesn't have the economy to power a large enough army to take Zuka on. Definitely would have been good for him to go ahead and expand behind that bigger attack, because even though it went badly for him, he could have gained some decent benefit by having an additional base up before Zuka did. Zuka looks like he's going to go ahead and spot that pylon. Spots the second pylon. Third pylon has to go down further away for Seb, just to make sure it's worth it, and I don't think engaging directly is the way to go here. Probably doing some harassment at these mineral lines with those DTs would be a very powerful tactic at this point. We do have ZookaMan having some DTs of his own, morphing them into Archons. Lots and lots and lots of Zealots here. Not necessarily the best of compositions versus this nice AoE of the Colossus here. We have some fairly beefy Immortals to back them up. I think this game is probably more or less over after that big attack went south for him, and he didn't use it to his advantage to expand, which is really unfortunate actually, since he had a pretty decent thing going for him before that attack. Are we gonna see any harassment here? No, no, he decides to engage directly, which is probably not the way to go. We see lots of units falling. Oh, I disabled the sound. That was no good. Ugh. In the army supply, we see it's 28 to 88, which again is just not going to be any good for Seb. We see Zuka marching across the map. We do have a few Zealots up here that were warped in, but unfortunately were cleared right off the board. Zuka, since he has extra, is going to go ahead and send several of these little probes down here to make pylons to reinforce this attack. Looks like he's going to go ahead and take a 5th too, because why not if you're Zuka? You have the money, you have the power to back it up and defend it. May as well take a 5th, right? Ugh. Stalkers marching on across. Really no defense over here. Even here at the front we don't have a whole lot of defense. Naturally this choke point isn't incredibly great for Zuka, but when you have the overwhelming numbers, it doesn't matter too much anyway, and he does have high ground vision because of his little detectors floating up there in the form of observers. Seb giving me very gentlemanly GG. Zuka also GGing, but staying in to make sure that he gets to see this base fully decimated before he leaves the game. So in any case, it was an excellent PvP. Thank you so much for your submission, Zuka. For those of you who don't know, Zuka is a fellow caster who you can catch on Twitch. I think it's just twitch.com/ZookaMan. He's cool, you should check him out. For those of you who liked my cast, if you want to see me cast one of your games, go ahead and send them to NoobCrafted@gmail.com. That's NoobCrafted@gmail.com. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and have a good night.